The Apple Watch notification lit up at 2:47 a.m., and that's when my marriage officially faded. I'd been lying awake for hours, staring at the ceiling of our ridiculously expensive Boston suburb bedroom, listening to Claire's breathing. She'd stumbled in around midnight, claiming another late night at the firm, her hair mussed and lipstick gone. The shower she took lasted 25 minutes. Who needs 25 minutes to wash off billable hours? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. But Claire forgot one thing in her post-affair cleanup routine: her Apple Watch, charging on the nightstand next to me. The message preview glowed in the darkness. Tom, last night was incredible. Can't wait to feel you again after tomorrow's board meeting. Your body drives me crazy. I stared at those words until they burned into my retinas. Tom Reynolds, her law firm partner, the same Tom who'd been coming to our barbecues for 3 years, drinking my beer and complimenting my grilling while apparently planning to grill my wife. My name is James Bennett, and I'm a tech entrepreneur who specializes in security software. Ironic, considering I couldn't secure my own marriage, but that technical background was about to become very useful. I screenshot the message before it could disappear, then lay back down. Claire stirred beside me, mumbling something about depositions. Even in her sleep, she was lying. The next morning, I watched her perform her usual routine: coffee, yogurt, checking her phone with that secretive smile I'd been too stupid to question before. She kissed my cheek with lips that had been somewhere else 12 hours earlier. "Working late again tonight," she announced, not quite meeting my eyes. "Big case." "Which case?" I asked, stirring my coffee. "The Morrison acquisition. Very complex." She grabbed her briefcase, the Hermes one I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary. "Tom and I need to go through every detail." "I bet you do." She paused at the door. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, honey. Just admiring your dedication to thorough examination." After she left, I called my assistant Allison. At 29, she was sharp, loyal, and had a computer science degree that made her invaluable for both business and personal matters. "Allison, I need a favor. Can you come over? Bring your laptop." An hour later, we were sitting in my home office, Claire's Apple Watch connected to Allison's computer. "James, are you sure about this?" Allison asked, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "This feels like crossing a line." "The line got crossed at 2:47 this morning. I just want to know how far." What we found made my stomach turn. Months of messages, explicit photos, hotel receipts, plans to spend weekends together while I thought Claire was at legal conferences. The worst part wasn't the connection. It was the mockery. Tom calling me the oblivious tech nerd. Claire laughing about how I still brought her coffee in bed while she was getting real satisfaction elsewhere. But the message that changed everything was from 2 weeks ago. "We need to be more careful. James mentioned updating our prenup yesterday. If he gets suspicious and divorces me, I get almost nothing. We need to make him look bad first, maybe unstable. Then I can claim emotional abuse and get a better settlement." I leaned back in my chair, a cold smile spreading across my face. "Allison, how do you feel about helping me with a little project?" She looked at the screen, then at me. "What kind of project?" "The kind that teaches people why they shouldn't underestimate the oblivious tech nerd." Claire's law firm, Callahan & Associates, occupied 3 floors of a gleaming downtown Boston high-rise. I'd been there dozens of times for office parties and partner dinners, smiling and making small talk while Claire worked the room. Now I sat in the marble lobby, waiting for Tom Reynolds to appear. I didn't have to wait long. At 12:30 p.m., he emerged from the elevator, checking his Rolex. Another detail that annoyed me. Tom was everything I wasn't. Tall, athletic, silver-haired, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. He wore $1,000 suits and had a corner office that screamed success. James! He approached with that politician's smile, hand extended. What brings you downtown? Meeting with investors nearby. Thought I'd surprise Claire for lunch. I shook his hand, squeezing just a little too hard. But her assistant said she's in depositions all afternoon. Oh, right. The Morrison case. Very demanding. He didn't even blink at the lie. Rain check on lunch, I'm afraid. No problem. Actually, I'm glad I ran into you. I've been meaning to ask, that restaurant you recommended last month? Chez Laurent? Claire and I finally went there. Tom's face went blank. Restaurant? You know, when you told Claire about their private dining rooms, she said you raved about the intimate atmosphere. Now he was sweating. I don't recall. Funny thing about private dining rooms, I continued, stepping closer. They keep detailed reservation records, dates, times, names, very thorough documentation. Tom's Adam's apple bobbed. James, I think there might be some confusion. Oh, I'm not confused at all. In fact, everything's becoming very clear. I smiled. Give Claire my regards when you see her. Tell her I'm looking forward to our conversation tonight. I walked away, leaving Tom frozen in the lobby. Phase 1 complete. That evening, I prepared carefully. Hidden cameras were already installed in our home office, a security measure I'd implemented months ago after some corporate espionage concerns. Now they'd serve a different purpose. Claire arrived home at 8 p.m., earlier than usual. She seemed nervous, distracted. How was your day? She asked, pouring herself a large glass of wine. Productive. Had an interesting conversation with Tom Reynolds. She nearly dropped the glass. Oh, about what? Business stuff, security consulting for the firm. I watched her face carefully. He seemed stressed about something, kept checking his phone. He's been working very hard lately. I'm sure he has. All those late nights, weekend conferences. Very dedicated. Claire nodded, then excused herself to take a shower. While she was upstairs, I prepared the final piece of my trap. When she came down, I was sitting in the living room with a manila folder. What's that? She asked. Just some paperwork. Our prenup, actually. I've been thinking about what you said last month, about fairness and partnerships. I opened the folder. You were right. It is outdated. Hope flickered in her eyes. Really? Absolutely. So I had my lawyer draft a new version, much more contemporary. I handed her the documents. This one reflects the reality of our situation. Claire began reading, and I watched her face change from hope to confusion to horror. James, this gives me almost nothing. Less than the original. That's right. Turns out adultery clauses are still very enforceable in Massachusetts, especially with proper documentation. She looked up sharply. Documentation? I pulled out my phone and played the audio I'd recorded from her Apple Watch messages. Tom's voice filled the room. God, Claire, when you do that thing with your tongue. Stop! She lunged for the phone, but I pulled it away. There's more. Months of it. Photos, videos, hotel records, credit card statements, very thorough documentation. Claire sank into the couch, her face pale. James, please, let me explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing Tom Reynolds for 6 months while planning to screw me in divorce court? How you called me an oblivious tech nerd while I was making you coffee every morning? How you were going to claim I was emotionally abusive to get a better settlement? She started crying, real tears this time, not the crocodile ones she used in court. I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. No, Claire. A mistake is forgetting to pick up dry cleaning. This was a calculated betrayal. I stood up. You have 2 choices. Sign the new prenup and end your affair, or I release everything to your firm's partners, your clients, and that legal blog you're always worried about. You can't do this. It's blackmail. It's consequences, something you've managed to avoid your whole life. I headed for the stairs. You have 24 hours to decide. Claire didn't sign the prenup. Instead, she declared war. The next morning, I woke up to find our joint bank accounts frozen and a restraining order petition on our kitchen counter. According to the filing, I was emotionally unstable and had been threatening and intimidating her. She was seeking exclusive use of our home and temporary spousal support. I had to admire her strategy. Claire was a good lawyer, even if she was a terrible wife. But she'd made one crucial error. She'd underestimated exactly how prepared I was for this fight. My phone rang. Allison. James, you need to see the news. Channel 5 is running a story about domestic violence in affluent communities. They're not naming names, but I turned on the TV. There was Claire, face partially obscured, talking about successful men who use their power to control and intimidate their wives. The interviewer was nodding sympathetically while Claire described her fear and isolation. Clever girl, I muttered. She was building a public narrative before I could respond. My lawyer, Patricia Patel, called an hour later. James, we have a problem. Claire's team is pushing for an emergency hearing. They're claiming you've been monitoring her communications illegally. The Apple Watch was in our bedroom, marital property, shared iCloud account, completely legal. Maybe, but the optics are bad, especially with this media campaign she's running. Then let's change the optics. That afternoon, I drove to the Gavel, the bar where Claire's law firm crowd gathered after work. I'd been there dozens of times for office happy hours, back when I thought I was part of their world. Now I was about to remind them why underestimating the tech guy was a mistake. Rachel Morrison, Claire's best friend and fellow associate, was holding court at the bar, no doubt spreading Claire's version of events. She spotted me immediately. James, I didn't expect to see you here. Just grabbing a drink. Stressful day. I ordered a scotch and turned to face the group. I hear Claire's been talking to reporters. The conversation stopped. 6 lawyers, all staring at me with varying degrees of discomfort. She's going through a difficult time, Rachel said carefully. We all are. Divorce is hard, especially when you discover your spouse has been documenting your affair for months. Rachel's face went white. James, maybe we should... Should what? Pretend it didn't happen? Pretend Tom Reynolds wasn't sending my wife explicit messages at 3 a.m.? Pretend they weren't using firm resources to book hotel rooms? You're out of line, said David Chen, another partner. Am I? Or am I just tired of being the only one in this situation who's expected to be discreet? I pulled out my phone. Would you like to hear some of those messages, David? I'm sure your wife would find them educational. Are you threatening us? Rachel asked. I'm offering context. Claire wants to play the victim card, paint me as some controlling monster. But victims don't usually spend 6 months planning to destroy their husband's reputation for financial gain. I played a 30-second audio clip, Claire and Tom discussing how to make me look unstable and paranoid to improve her divorce settlement. The silence that followed was deafening. Jesus Christ, Claire, whispered someone from the back of the group. There's more, I continued. Bank records showing firm credit cards used for hotel rooms, email chains about weekend conferences that don't exist, a very thorough paper trail of fraud and ethics violations. Rachel stood up. James, what do you want? I want the truth to come out, all of it. Claire made this public when she went to the media. Now everyone gets to see the whole story. I finished my drink and left them sitting in stunned silence. By tomorrow, every lawyer in Boston would know the real story. Claire's narrative was about to collapse. But Tom Reynolds wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. Tom cornered me in the parking garage of my office building 3 days later. I was walking to my car when he emerged from behind a concrete pillar, his usual polished appearance disheveled. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his silver hair uncombed. We need to talk, he said, blocking my path. Do we? I thought you'd said everything you needed to say in those text messages. You're destroying people's lives with this crusade of yours. I'm revealing the truth. There's a difference. I stepped closer. Though I understand the distinction might be unclear to someone who's been lying for 6 months. Tom's hands clenched into fists. You think you're so smart, don't you? The brilliant tech entrepreneur, always one step ahead. I don't think it. I know it. That's why your girlfriend is about to lose her law license and you're about to lose your partnership. Claire made a mistake. People have affairs, James. It doesn't make them monsters. Affairs are one thing. Conspiracy to commit fraud is another. I pulled out my phone. Want to hear the recording where you two discuss planting drugs in my car to make me look unstable? Tom's face went gray. That was just talk. Was it? Because I have receipts for the cocaine you bought from your client's son. The same cocaine that mysteriously appeared in my gym bag last week, right before Claire called in an anonymous tip to the police. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. Hidden cameras, Tom. My security system has been recording everything for months. Your little evidence-planting expedition is on video. Tom stumbled backward. You're insane. No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. I stepped forward, backing him against a concrete wall. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign from Callahan and Associates. You're going to end all contact with my wife. And you're going to pray I don't decide to press charges for attempted drug planting. And if I don't? I smiled. Then tomorrow morning, every partner at your firm gets a detailed report of your activities, along with video evidence. Your career will be over by lunch. Tom tried to push past me, but I grabbed his arm. We're not done talking. Let go of me. Not until you understand something. I squeezed harder. You thought you could destroy my life and walk away clean, but you picked the wrong target. I'm not some naive husband who will quietly disappear. I'm a man with resources, connections, and a very long memory. Tom's expensive watch caught the garage lighting. A Rolex Submariner, probably worth $15,000. I'd always hated that watch, the way he'd check it during conversations, making sure everyone noticed. Nice watch, I said. What? Before he could react, I grabbed his wrist and slammed it against the concrete wall. The watch face shattered with a satisfying crack. Oops, I said. Looks like time's up. Tom stared at his destroyed watch in shock. You're crazy. No, I'm angry, and I'm just getting started. I released his arm. 48 hours, Tom. Resign and disappear, or face the consequences. I walked away, leaving him cradling his broken watch in the dim garage lighting. But Tom Reynolds had one more card to play. The FBI showed up at my office on a Thursday morning. 2 agents in dark suits, flashing badges and asking about financial irregularities in my company's government contracts. I knew immediately this was Tom's doing. As a partner at Callahan and Associates, he had connections throughout the federal legal system. If he couldn't destroy me personally, he'd try to destroy me professionally. Mr. Bennett, said Agent Sarah Williams, settling into my conference room, we've received allegations that your company has been overbilling on Department of Defense contracts. Allegations from whom? That's confidential, but we have documentation suggesting systematic fraud over the past 2 years. They showed me invoices I'd never seen before, emails with forged signatures, bank transfers to accounts I didn't control. Someone had built an elaborate paper trail designed to make me look guilty of federal fraud. This is fabricated, I told them. That's what they all say, replied Agent Williams. We'll need to examine your computers, financial records, and communications. For the next 6 hours, they tore through my office while I sat with my lawyer, watching my reputation crumble in real time. By afternoon, news of the FBI raid had leaked to the tech blogs. My investors were calling, panicked, clients were canceling contracts. Tom had played his hand perfectly. Even if the charges didn't stick, the damage was done. My company was finished, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I didn't know about his own federal problems. That evening, I met with Marcus Sullivan, my old college roommate who now worked as a federal prosecutor in Boston. We sat in his office after hours, sharing a bottle of whiskey while I explained the situation. Jesus, James, this is a mess. It gets worse. The evidence they showed me today, some of it's real. Marcus looked up sharply. What? Not the overbilling, that's fabricated. But some of those bank transfers, they're legitimate. Tom's been using my company to launder money from his client accounts. I pulled out a flash drive. Remember how I mentioned my security system records everything? That includes every visitor to my office, every document they accessed, every computer they used. Tom Reynolds has been in my office 12 times over the past year, always when I was traveling. He had help from someone inside my company. Who? My CFO, Derek Walsh. Tom's been paying him to create false invoices and bank transfers. They thought they were setting up a slush fund for bribes and kickbacks. Instead, they created evidence of their own crimes. Marcus opened the files I'd brought. Bank records, security footage, email chains between Tom and Derek discussing their arrangement. This is federal money laundering, he said quietly, and conspiracy, and fraud. Derek's been skimming from legitimate contracts to fund Tom's scheme. The money trail leads directly back to Callahan and Associates' client accounts. Why didn't you report this earlier? Because I didn't know the full scope until the FBI raid today. Seeing their evidence helped me understand what Tom and Derek were really doing. I leaned forward. Marcus, they're not just trying to frame me. They're trying to cover up their own crimes by making me the fall guy. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents. James, this is bigger than your divorce. If what you're showing me is accurate, Tom Reynolds and your CFO have been running a money laundering operation through your company for over a year. Can you help me? I can't get involved in your personal legal issues, but if you're reporting federal crimes, he smiled grimly. That's different. That's my job. The next morning, Marcus arranged for me to meet with the FBI agents who'd raided my office. This time, I wasn't a suspect. I was a whistleblower. Claire was waiting in our driveway when I got home that night, sitting in her BMW with the engine running. She rolled down the window as I approached. We need to talk. I thought we were past talking. Your restraining order kind of ended that option. The restraining order is withdrawn. I had my lawyer file the paperwork this afternoon. I studied her face. She looked exhausted, older somehow. The confident attorney facade had cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. What do you want, Claire? Tom's missing. He didn't show up for work today, didn't answer his phone. His assistant said FBI agents were at the firm asking questions about client accounts. Interesting. James, what did you do? I told the truth. Something you should try sometime. She got out of the car, moving closer. Tom said you threatened him. Said you were going to destroy his career. Tom said a lot of things, most of them lies. Is he in trouble? Real trouble? I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, standing in the driveway of the house we'd shared for 7 years. Once upon a time, I'd loved her more than anything in the world. Now, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Tom Reynolds and my CFO have been laundering money through my company for over a year, using it to fund bribes, kickbacks, and personal expenses. The FBI has bank records, security footage, and email evidence. Tom's probably halfway to a non-extradition country by now. Claire's face went white. You set him up. I exposed him, there's a difference. But the raid on your company was Tom's last desperate attempt to frame me for his crimes. It backfired spectacularly. I smiled. Turns out when you're running a money laundering operation, calling federal attention to your activities isn't the smartest move. Claire stumbled backward against her car. Oh God! Oh God! What have I done? You chose the wrong side, and the wrong man. James, please, I made mistakes, but I didn't know about any financial crimes. You have to believe me. It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what the FBI believes, and they're very interested in talking to Tom's associates about their knowledge of his activities. I don't know anything. Maybe not. But you did help him access my office. You gave him my security codes, my travel schedule. The FBI has records of every time he used those codes. Claire slid down the side of her car, sitting on the driveway. I'm going to lose my license. Probably. Aiding and abetting federal crimes tends to have consequences. What do you want from me? Nothing. You already gave me everything I needed. I walked toward the house, then paused. Oh, Claire. You might want to find a new place to stay. The house is in my name, and I'm having the locks changed tomorrow. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. I left her sitting in the driveway and went inside to pack her belongings. The story broke 3 days later. Federal money laundering scheme rocks prestigious Boston law firm. Tom Reynolds's photo was on the front page of the Boston Globe, along with details of his flight to Argentina and the frozen client accounts he'd left behind. I was sitting in my lawyer's office when Patricia showed me the article. Congratulations, she said. You're officially the victim in this story. How's that? The FBI's investigation cleared you of any wrongdoing. In fact, they're calling you a hero for exposing the scheme. Your company's reputation is not only restored, it's enhanced. Nothing like being vindicated by federal law enforcement to boost credibility. She was right. My phone hadn't stopped ringing with calls from investors, clients, and reporters wanting to hear about how I'd uncovered the conspiracy. The tech blogs were calling me a cybersecurity genius who'd used his own systems to catch the criminals. What about Claire? No criminal charges. The FBI couldn't prove she knew about the money laundering. But the State Bar Association is reviewing her license. Helping someone access secure facilities without authorization violates several ethics rules. And the divorce? Patricia smiled. She signed the prenup yesterday. No contest, no spousal support, no property division. She gets her personal belongings and her car. Everything else stays with you. Just like that? Just like that. Turns out, when your boyfriend flees the country to avoid federal charges, your negotiating position weakens considerably. I walked out of Patricia's office feeling lighter than I had in months. The nightmare was over. Tom was gone, Claire was out of my life, and my company was thriving. Justice had been served. But there was one more piece of business to handle. Derek Walsh, my former CFO, was sitting in a federal holding cell awaiting trial. His lawyer had reached out, hoping to negotiate a plea deal in exchange for testimony about Tom's operation. I'd agreed to meet with them, not out of mercy, but because I wanted Derek to understand exactly how thoroughly he'd been played. The federal courthouse was buzzing with activity when I arrived. Derek looked smaller somehow, diminished by his orange jumpsuit and shackles. His expensive suits and confident demeanor were gone, replaced by the hollow stare of a man who'd lost everything. James, he said, as I sat down across from him, thank you for coming. Don't thank me. I'm not here to help you. His lawyer, a tired-looking public defender, cleared his throat. Mr. Bennett, my client is prepared to provide full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. Your client helped steal $2 million from my company and tried to frame me for federal crimes. What exactly does he think he deserves? Derek leaned forward. I was in over my head. Tom convinced me it was just creative accounting, that we weren't hurting anyone. You weren't hurting anyone? Derek, your actions nearly destroyed my company. My employees almost lost their jobs because of your greed. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't pay back the money you stole. Sorry doesn't repair the damage to my reputation. Sorry is just a word you use when you get caught. Derek's lawyer tried again. Mr. Bennett, Derek's cooperation could help recover some of the missing funds from Tom's offshore accounts. The FBI is already tracking those accounts. They don't need Derek's help. I stood up. Here's what's going to happen. Derek is going to plead guilty to all charges. He's going to serve whatever sentence the judge gives him, and he's going to spend the rest of his life knowing that he threw away his career and his freedom for a con man who abandoned him the moment things got difficult. Derek started crying. Please, James, I have a family. You should have thought about your family before you decided to become a criminal. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Derek. Tom never intended to share that money with you. The offshore accounts were all in his name. You were never his partner. You were just his patsy. The look of realization on Derek's face was the final piece of my revenge. 6 months later, I was sitting on the deck of my new house in Martha's Vineyard, watching the sunset over the water. I'd sold the Boston house, too many bad memories, and bought this place with the insurance money from Tom's theft. It was smaller, but peaceful, with no ghosts of failed marriage haunting the rooms. My company had not only recovered but thrived. The publicity from exposing the money laundering scheme had brought in dozens of new clients, all wanting the security expert who'd caught federal criminals using his own systems. We'd doubled our revenue and opened offices in New York and Washington. Claire had moved back to her hometown in Ohio, working for a small firm that specialized in personal injury cases. Her law license had been suspended for 2 years, effectively ending her corporate law career. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment and driving a 10-year-old Honda. Tom Reynolds was still in Argentina, living under an assumed name and working as a bartender in Buenos Aires. The FBI had frozen his assets and issued an international warrant, but Argentina didn't extradite for financial crimes. He'd traded his corner office and Rolex for exile and anonymity. Derek Walsh was serving 8 years in federal prison. His wife had divorced him, his house had been foreclosed, and his children wouldn't speak to him. Justice had many forms, but sometimes the most effective was simply letting people live with the consequences of their choices. My phone buzzed with a text from Allison, who was now my business partner as well as my closest friend. "Dinner tonight? I'm making that pasta you like." I smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. I'll bring wine." Some stories end with dramatic confrontations or violent revenge. This one ended with something better: the complete destruction of my enemies through their own greed and stupidity. I hadn't fired a shot or thrown a punch. I'd simply been patient, thorough, and smarter than the people trying to destroy me. Claire had wanted a settlement. She'd gotten one, just not the kind she'd expected. Tom had wanted to steal my life. Instead, he'd lost his own. Derek had wanted easy money. He'd found a hard lesson instead. As for me, I'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting everything while your enemies get exactly what they deserve. Nothing. The sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new possibilities. But tonight, I was content to sit in the silence of a life rebuilt, a reputation restored, and a future that belonged entirely to me. The settlement was complete.